So I made this video a few days ago about this Svelte compiler, and I received some interesting comments, and we're just going to look at them in a minute. But one thing I will show you is I'll just finish off what I was doing the other day when we were looking at this Hello World application. That's what the output was, and I forgot to put the breakpoint in here, so we'll just look at that. Remember, this was the code just that was rendering text element. So we'll just jump in here, Svelte Bootcamp, and it was this file, this project. Right, so that's the application there, and we have this main file. And the only bit of real interactivity or fancy stuff that's going on here is just this. Restart the server. Okay. So this is some of the background stuff, creates the app, and the moment we don't have anything in the DOM, so we just have the body here, and I'm just going to create an element, and this element is a utility function that is just the same as document.createElement, but because they use it so much, then the compiler outputs a utility function for element. So we can just actually step into that using F11. So what it just returns the result of document.createElement. And if you followed any other of my videos, you know that I use that quite a lot. But this is actually more lines of code than this, so this actually saves space long term. So we get this element back from this function. So you can see here where you hover this, we get an actual element that has all the properties of an element using the native API. And we can actually, what's that initialized as an h1 tag. So if you actually hover over this, we can see that the tag name is going to be h1. Okay, and then we can actually modify a property here, mutable property, and it's going to give us that as the text content. And then there's this thing called add location. So we're passing in the element, and this thing called file, which is the path to the app Svelte. And I'm just going to step into this because I've not actually looked at that function yet. So he's got this function called add location, and so there's just something called Svelte meta, which is an undefined property, and he actually passes in this file name, the line, the column, and the char. That's interesting. Another thing I need to learn. So let's just look at that file, app.svelte. I'm going to go and ask the guys, the creators of the framework, what that actually does. Or I could just look up in the docs. So anyway, we're getting this thing called file, line, and column, and line 1 would be here. So let's just continue. I'm not quite sure what that's doing. Okay, so we're actually creating this thing called a block in this create fragment. Let's just go back a bit and look at what create fragment is. Now I'm going to expand the screen again because it's too small. Okay, so now we have a sociably acceptable screen size. We have now created this h1 element, and we now have some metadata on it. So you can see that the actual object here in JavaScript has this stuff here. Right, so we're in this create fragment function, and let's just look at the call stack. So let's just go to here. Right, so this bundle.js, this is getting a little bit hairy here. I'm not really sure I want to stop talking about this because I don't claim to understand it yet. But let's just go back up to the app. So you know what, let's just put a breakpoint here and just take it from there instead. We created the Fifi self immediately executing function expression, and then we go into the app, and then we create this Svelte component here. So let's just refresh the page. It's quite exciting. This is actually quite exciting. All right. So we're extending this felt component dev, and we've got the super function. And so the options here is basically this body target. And I wonder where we pass the body from. Ah, okay, it comes from here. Makes sense. So let's just step into super. So we've got this thing called extends felt component, and we've got this felt component dev. I guess this is something that we use when we're doing development mode. So let's just see what called that. We've got the options here, target body, and there's something inline. Okay. Right, so let's just step over this and go into this super method, which is felt component. So this is the central thing. And let's just see what gets called here, shall we? So we've just got, let's put some breakpoints in there. And I don't think there's anything that's going to, there's no constructor here, so nothing's going to happen. So let's just continue. So we've got this thing that we've extended this, and we're going to call it a init function. And we're going to come into this. So we got this component, which is this thing here. Got our options, instance, create fragment, a function there not equal, and prop names. So let's just go back to the callee. So this safe not equal looks like the init function, and I've got this thing called create fragment function we're passing in. Let's just look at those functions and what they actually do here. So create fragment, it's this thing here what we're doing, we've already seen that, okay. And if we go back to this safe not equal, let's just check what that is. So we're taking an A and B, and I'm wondering, is that really necessary? I guess it must be. So if A is not equal to A, or B is equal to A, I'm sure there's a good reason for that. Okay, let's get back to our init function here. So we have this, that's interesting how it's passing in these, I'm sure there's a good reason for it. Anyway, parent component, current component is currently null. Okay. And we're doing this thing called set current component, which is this thing. And let's just step into that function. We might as well just cover absolutely everything. No risk, nothing gained. So we've got this thing called set current component. We've got our component here, and we've got this component. Let's just check to see what this is. Okay, what is current component? Okay, sorry, it's my mistake. We're inside of this closure here. Okay, so everything's local to this function. Nothing's going to be global. Very good. So we're setting this current component to component. Great. So now we've got this thing called props, and we don't have any props here. And there's this thing called $. So on our component is this thing, and we're going to create a property called $. So this is what it has. It has a fragment, something context, prop names, update, nope, whatever that is, safe not equal, bound, blank object, on mount, on destroy, these probably callbacks, before update, context, new map, parent component. Okay, if some of you guys are watching this that know more about me and I'm kind of waffling on anything, just let me know in the comments below. Always very appreciated. So let's just check to see this blank object. First time we've seen this. So blank object.create null. I've never actually done that before. Let's just see what that does. I imagine it's just going to create an object. So, okay, interesting. No properties. So let's just see, let's just compare it to this. False. False. Yeah, because it's not a primitive type. But if you notice that this will have other properties. Let's just do this. So if you open this up, then we'll have all the proto stuff, but the blank object doesn't have that. Okay, that's interesting. So we have this special $$ thing, which we will figure out what it is later on. And when we start adding more things to the compiler, there will be reasons for it. So we now create this thing called instance, which is null. So if there is an instance, we create the instance, which we're not going to do. And then there's an update thing, which we'll step into. So what is the update? Update is it that? What was update again? Update noop. So where's that coming from? What is this noop thing? Oh, it's an empty function. Okay. Ask the compiler. I didn't invent it. So we call this noop, and then there's this thing called ready. Ready. Where was ready? And I wish you could go to definitions of things. Really, sometimes. I think what we'll do, we'll just go back to WebStorm here, and we'll look at the bundle here. So let's see this ready thing. So ready comes, oh, it's up there, okay. Go back to Chrome. Run all. When you see some things for the first time, sometimes it's kind of hard to navigate. So what is run all? So run all basically passes in a function, a list of functions which has we then look through these functions, and we call back this function called run, which returns the execution of what the function was. Okay, cool. I feel my IQ is expanding here. My brain's getting warm. Right, so we call this thing called run all, and then we call all of the before update lifecycle hooks on top of this $$ thing, which I forgot what it was, which is basically this component. So we create this property here, this $. I guess $$ means like this felt information for that component, and the original component is the app here. Well, I guess we'll understand more of this once we add things, and then we'll create a diff of what this output is versus when we change or add things to the app. So we have a base. I've checked in this code as it stands within the GitHub repository. So we will see any changes. So what I did basically here was de-ignored the public bundle. And yeah, hopefully this video is interesting so far. So now we've got this function called create fragment. So I'm just going to stop here because it's getting a bit of a long video, and we'll come back into this in the next video and continue where we are here. Alright, thanks very much. Bye bye.